Welcome to this beginner's tutorial for FL Studio 21. This is a complete course where I will teach you how to get up and running in FL Studio and create your music in no time. We'll cover the basics of the powerful music production software FL Studio. First of all, this video is for total beginners, but if you're an experienced FL Studio user already, I think you can also gain some knowledge from this video. First, you need a computer that should run Windows 7 or later, or macOS 10.13 or later. Other than that, a computer that is at least 5 years old is well enough for it to run. If you want FL Studio to run smoothly, you should aim for a Windows computer with at least an i7 CPU, 16 GB of RAM, and SSD as your main hard drive. With Mac, you should get the Silicon CPU, such as the M1 or M2, and at least 16 GB of RAM with an SSD hard drive. As you can see, there are 4 different versions of FL Studio called editions. In this list, you can see the difference between these editions. We will use the All Plugins edition, which includes everything in FL Studio. You can also download it for free and use it alongside with this tutorial. Just go to Try for free to download this edition. What is also worth mentioning is that you will get lifetime free updates with your purchase of FL Studio, meaning that you will only purchase it once and then you will have access to all future updates lifetime. In this tutorial, I'm using a Mac, but it's essentially the same for Windows computers. Just go to the installation file that you downloaded and open it. Follow the instructions to install it and open the program to launch FL Studio. Let's just take a look at the hardware requirements for FL Studio. There are no requirements when it comes to hardware, other than the computer, of course. But I will briefly show you what I think you should get if you're serious about your music production. First of all, headphones or speakers, or both. Many people are using their sound out 3.5mm audio output on their computer to get the sound out to speakers. But I would strongly suggest you to not do this. If you want your sound to be clean, you should get yourself an audio interface. A cheap one that still works great is a Focusrite Scarlett Solo. With this one, you can also connect speakers, headphones, microphones, and line-ins from instruments like guitars or basses. If you only want to produce with headphones, then it's okay to use the 3.5mm audio out from your computer. Make sure that it can drive your headphones before doing this. I myself use a Mackie Big Knob Studio, which is an audio interface and a controller to control different sets of speakers or headphones and line-ins. I also use speakers or studio monitors. For this, I use the KRK Rokit monitors and some Genelec 8010A monitors paired with a sub, which is the KRK 8S2. Of course, you don't need all of this gear to create your music with FL Studio, but I just want to show you what you can use if you want to be serious with your music production. Next thing that makes your life a lot easier with FL Studio is a MIDI keyboard. I'm using the Native Instruments Complete Control M32, but it can be anything really. The MIDI keyboard is handy when it comes to trying out different notes and to write notes in FL Studio more naturally. You can of course write in notes without a MIDI keyboard and just do it with your mouse or even your computer keyboard. But I find it strange to do so. But this is of course a personal preference. So let's open up FL Studio and start to produce some music. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at FL Studio's interface. And as soon as you open up FL Studio, it should look something like this. These are the different windows that you have in FL Studio. You can close them like that, and you can also open them here. So let's begin with everything closed. And let's take a look at the left upper side first of all. So here we have the usual, of course, close, minimize and maximize buttons. This is a Mac, and it looks a bit different on a Windows, of course. Then we have the file menu, which is the standard new, open, save, import, export, and open the recent projects as well. Here you can see we can open a new project. This is a basic 808 with limiter, so these are different templates, but the new basic 808 with limiter is the default template that you can open up with. You also have different templates here, so new from template, you can choose different templates here. So if you want to open up something like breakbeat, then you can open up. You can see it says start producing breakbeat, includes placeholder channels, mixer routing, and color coding. So these are just suggestions for you that FL Studio thinks that you can use with different genres. But if you want to just have it clean, just go to empty here. You can see an empty template to start your project from nothing. This is usually what I do when I produce. I just go with an empty project. Then you have, of course, open, which is opening files that you have, FL Studio files. Save, save as, save new version, which is just saving a new version of your project file. Then you can, of course, import MIDI files here, and you can also export your project as a WAV file, MP3, and other file types as well. You can also upload to cloud. You have all playlist tracks from song start to track start. And you can also export as video, zip loop package, and other things like that. All of these export sections here is covered in my full FL Studio course that you can watch on the link to this video. If you're enjoying this free 1-hour tutorial and want to take your FL Studio skills to the next level, check out my 30-hour FL Studio Complete course on Udemy. With over 33,000 students and a 4.4 rating out of 5, this course covers everything you need to know to become an FL Studio master. You'll get hands-on experience with the software, learn how to use plugins and effects, create your own sounds, and more. We will also create 6 full tracks from scratch. We'll also cover the first steps in FL Studio, just as in this YouTube video, but just more in depth. And also channel rack, mixer, playlist. We'll also show you how to start a project, exactly like in this YouTube video, but even more in depth. We will also create a full track. We'll create a deep house track there, as well as an house track. And we will also create a lot more tracks here. You can also see we have studio sessions. This is just where I create music, and this is unedited, so you can just watch from scratch what I'm doing here. And we also have some Q&A sections, and you will also learn some different synths and music theory, and you can also get some song feedback from me as well. And best of all, if you head over to music-prod.com/YouTubeFL or click the link in the video description, you'll get the course at the lowest price available. So don't wait, enroll now and start create amazing music with FL Studio. Then you have, of course, the edit, which is just cut and copy. Then you have add, which is add plugins to your project file. And we're going to cover this later on. Here you have the patterns, which is different patterns that you have for your project, which we also will cover later on. Here you have view, so you can open and close different windows, the same thing as we did here. And you have different options for this as well. Then you have options, which is media settings, audio settings, general settings, file settings, theme settings, and manage plugins. These are the most important things. If we click the MIDI settings, we will get the settings window, which has all of the settings for FL Studio. So first of all, you can see I'm using the Complete Control M32 MIDI keyboard. And to have this enabled, you just click Output and Input and have it selected and click Enable here. This is very important if you're using a MIDI keyboard and you can't seem to have it working. Then you just go here to MIDI setting and click Enable. And you also need to have this selected here. If you can't see any MIDI keyboard, just go to Refresh Device List. Okay, so next thing is the audio settings. And here you can see Input Output. And here you should have your sound interface selected. If you're just using the built-in from the computer, just leave it on default audio device. But we have different settings for this computer, for instance. I have a studio display where I can use the speakers from it. I can also use my sound interface, which is the Big Knob Studio that I talked about. And I can also use my MacBook Pro speakers, for instance. So it's very important to choose your input and output device. If you have it on default audio device, then FL Studio will use the same audio interface as you selected in your system. Then you have different options here as well. We're not going to cover this in this video, but I will suggest you to just leave it as it is for now. Then you have different general settings. So here you can see you have a lot of different things that you can customize and look at as well. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, of course. Then we have this one here, which is the file settings. And here we can choose the user data folder, which you're just going to set as is. You can also see something called plugins. And if we go to manage plugins here, you can see that we have our plugin manager, which is all of the plugins that we have on our system. So this includes all plugins that we have on our computer. So you can see here a list of all of my plugins. Your list can be different, of course. And if you can't see any plugins in the list, just go to FL Studio folder here and just select the plugins folder for your system. You can also see plugin search paths. And here you can add different paths, so FL Studio knows where to look for your different plugins that you have on your system. You can also click here Find Install Plugins, which will make FL Studio search for all of your plugins. Let's just leave it as it is, of course. And then we have our browser extra search folders, which is a very nice thing. Let's say that you have a sample pack or a folder where you have all of your sample packs. Then you just go to one of these folders here, just click it, select the path to that sample pack or that folder with different audio that you want to use within FL Studio, and just select it here. And then it will be your favorite folder here in the browser. Then we have different settings here, which I'm not going to cover in this basic FL Studio course. Then we have something called theme, which is a new thing for FL Studio 21. And here you can basically just select how you want FL Studio to look like. So I can choose something like this or just as the original is. You can also A/B, of course. So you have different settings. So you can just A/B. Let's say that you want to work when it's daylight outside. You can choose it like this. And then if you go to B here, we can have this selected, and now you can switch between A and B just like that. Then if we go to project here, you can see a data folder. Then we have an info, which is just something that you want to add to your project file. You can see total time spent on my project file, for instance. This is a very nice thing to see how long you worked with a project file. And this is just 17 minutes. So I just started. You can see how many plugins, how many channels, mixer tracks. This is a very cool thing to have there. Debug, about. So this is also a place where I can see if FL Studio is in a demo version or if it's unlocked. And then you can click Open Unlock Window if you purchased FL Studio. So let's get out of the settings here and let's go back to options. Okay, so let's go to Tools menu. Here we have different tools, of course. I'm not going to cover this as now, but we have different tools that you usually don't use, but sometimes you can use it, of course. And then we have the help section here. So right beside this menu bar here, we have the transport section. And here you can see we can switch between pattern and song mode. I will show you later on what this means. Then we have, of course, the play button, stop button, record button, and we have the tempo here as well. So we can just drag the tempo just like that if you want to switch the tempo. And a good thing to look at when you're just hovering over different buttons here is to take a look at this help section here. So as soon as we're just hovering a button here, you can see that it tells us what it is. You can also see different values here. So if I just choose a knob like this, you can also see the value of this knob. And you can also see the key command for this. So you can see here I'm just clicking the left mouse button or F1 button to access this one. And as soon as you can see, as soon as I just hover over any button, you can also see the key command of that. If I just do something like this, you can also see that it can be automated if it's a red dot beside it. So here we have the main volume of the project file, which I wouldn't use at all. I would just have it set on 100%. And then we have the master pitch knob and I would not use that as well. But it's nice to have here. And then you have the song position, which is just a bar where you can set song position of your project file. This is not something that I use as well. I just go to the playlist here and look at my song here instead of doing this, but it is there to use. Then we have the buttons here, as you can see: metronome, wait for input to start playing, countdown before recording, blend recording, loop recording, multi-link controllers, and other things like that. You can see what each button does in the help section. Then we have the song position indicator, which shows where we are in the song. Just right click here to choose if I want to see the bars or if I want to see minutes, seconds, and centiseconds. So basically what time we are in the project. Then we have different things here, as you can see: the monitor, which will monitor and show us an audio spectrum where we play something, but we don't have any music here at all, so I can't really show it. Then we have the CPU load meter, which is a very nice thing to have to see how much our CPU is working when we're playing our track. CPU load history is basically just something where we can see how much the CPU was loaded before. And here we have the memory usage, which is how much RAM FL Studio is currently using. Then we have amount of voices being processed, and this is basically how many voices a synth is creating for the project overall. Then we have undo and undo history, open new audio editor, one-click audio recording, and you have other buttons here as well. It doesn't make much sense for me to showing off now because we don't have any song playing right now. And then we have our windows here, as I showed you before. And besides this, we also have this pattern menu here, which is the same thing as the patterns here. And you can also choose patterns here. If you just scroll it like that, you can also click plus here to create a new pattern. We're going to go through patterns later on. Then we have the main snap or quantization, where we can select different quantization for, let's say, the playlist here. So if I create something like this, then you have steps here. So you can see as I'm moving this, it moves in steps. I don't know if you can see it really now, but if I zoom in a bit, you can see that it moves. You can see our fourth beat. So you can see we have one beat from here to here, and inside there we have 4 parts. So as you can see, we selected 1/4 beat. So this will move us 1/4 beat. And you can do different here as well. If you want it to be more fine adjusted here, you can see that we're now having many more parts here of a step. So I'm just going to use 1/4 beat for now. It's also the same thing for the piano roll here if we go and create different notes. Okay, but don't worry about that for now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just showing the different windows here and different things that you can use. All right. So now we're going to go over the different windows here that we have in FL Studio. So first of all, let's click View Playlist here, and this is the arrangement that we're going to have for our track. So here you will basically just lay out your track in different patterns. So the patterns is basically just something like this. It's part of a song basically. And you choose where you want that part to be in your arrangement. So I'm just going to show you the patterns later on, of course, but the playlist here is basically just the arrangement for our patterns and all of our different audio files that we want to add in FL Studio as well. And if you close this for now, let's go to the next window, which is our piano roll. And piano roll is the MIDI editor of FL Studio. So this is the place that we're going to put our MIDI data here if we're using a MIDI instrument or a plugin. And then we're just creating notes like that. Then we have the next window here, which is our channel rack. And the channel rack is basically the same thing as piano roll, but we're using notes like this. We're just inputting notes in steps like that instead of doing it in a piano roll. And the channel rack also has all of our different audio files and all of our different plugins as well. Everything is going to be listed here in the channel rack. So as you can see now, we just have an 808 kick, 808 clap, 808 hi-hat, and an 808 snare. And all of these four are actually MIDI instruments. So this, as you can see here, is a plugin called Sampler. And in the Sampler, there is an audio file loaded, which is in this case basic 808 snare.wave. So that is why we can use this and go to piano roll here, open up the piano roll of this 808 snare instrument, which is the sampler here. And now we can just create different sounds for it. Or actually we're just going to play this audio file that we have in the sampler, but in MIDI. So it's just going to be different notes here basically. And if you go to pattern here, and as you can see, we created our first pattern. We didn't even know about this, right? Because this is what FL Studio is all about. It's about creating patterns. So if you go to the playlist here, we have the first pattern, as you can see. And I just created the MIDI data here. And this was for the first pattern. And now you're asking, why is this MIDI data in the first pattern and not like pattern number 5 or whatever? And this is because we have pattern 1 selected up here. So if this would be pattern, let's say 5, then it's going to create our pattern 5 here instead. And as you can see here, it's also changed to pattern 5 in the playlist window. So let's say that we have our pattern 5. Let's redo something. And now we want to have a new pattern, right? Because we want to create, let's say, a hi-hat in a separate pattern. Then we just go to pattern here, the plus button, and then you can just rename it so we know what it is, the pattern 1. So let's do something like hi-hat. You can also color it here if you want to just differentiate this pattern a bit. And let's just click here to have it set like that. And now you can go to hi-hat. Let's do something like that. We have the pattern mode selected here. So now it's just going to play this pattern. And you can also see that it's re-looping as soon as we stop creating MIDI data. So it's going to play it to this end, and then it's just going to replay it. Okay, so now let's say that we want this hi-hat here, and we also want these snares here. And of course, pattern 5 is not such a nice name to have on a snare track, of course. So let's right-click and click Rename and Color. Let's choose snares, and let's go with a blue color, for instance. Now we have our hi-hat and snares. So as you can see here, if I switch between them, they're also switching in the channel rack. You can, of course, have multiple different instruments playing in one pattern. So let's say that we want to have one more pattern here that we're calling hi-hat plus kick. Let's do something like this. And you notice I'm not using the piano roll, I'm just using the channel rack here instead. And this is going to be the same thing here. So if I just open up here, you can see that the notes are selected here and also inputted the same way as we would do in the piano roll. So if you input notes like this is going to be the same thing as you're inputting the notes if you go to piano roll like this. So now you can see that we have different patterns here, and now we're just playing them solo, but we can also play them together, or let's say a combination of them. So if you go to song mode here instead, and now I select snares, I want some snares here, and then I want some hi-hats playing from this end, and then I want hi-hat and kick playing in this part here. Now if we play this, and just take a note here that we're going to use the song mode. Let's just play this and let's see what happens. So now instead of playing the patterns soloed, you can now play the whole song. And you just select all of the patterns that you want, and then just put them here just like that. Okay, so let's say that we have a basic song, and this, by this I mean a very, very basic song, of course, because this is basic. Let's create something like this now. We have our little song, which is, how long is it? 5 seconds. Yes, that's a very long song. So if we go to the mixer section here, we of course want to create a mix for a song, of course. And let's say that I want this kick drum to be separate. Let's say that we want all of these instruments separate in a separate mixer channel. Then if we go to 808 kick here, this is the first instrument that we're using. You can see it's already selected to track 1. So this here track is the same thing as the first mixer channel. If we just do something like this, let's say we want this to be 10th mixer channel or 10th track, then it will be the 10th mixer channel. So that's the same thing here. So if you want it to be routed to the first mixer channel, then just have track and number 1 selected here. And if this doesn't make any sense for you right now, it is going to make sense when we're creating a music song. But for now, just go here, right click, and let's choose rename, color, and icon. And let's do kick. Something like that. And now we have the kick drum here. So if we want to play just this kick drum in this mixer channel, if we go to pattern here, now we have the hi-hat plus kick enabled here. And this is just going to have the kick drum and not the hi-hats here in the mixer channel. So as you can see here, we have this hi-hat selected on number track 3 here. So let's rename this to hi-hats, and let's color this. So now we have the hi-hats here and we have the kick here. So you can see they're separated here, but they are still in the same pattern. We can also mute and solo different instruments here. So let's say that we for now just don't want to listen to the hi-hat when we're playing this pattern. I can just mute it like that. And now it will only play the kick drum. I can do the same thing with the hi-hat, of course. Okay, so that's a basic understanding of FL Studio. You don't need to know much more about FL Studio for now if you're just going to create some music. And we want to create a full track, so let's just do it. I'm just going to close everything here, and let's just go with new from template, and just empty. And now we have our empty project file. So what I want to produce here is something very, very simple. And this is going to be an electronic dance music track or something like that. It's going to be an attempt of doing it. But this is not going to be the best song you've ever heard. I can guarantee you that. It's going to be made within like 20 minutes or something like that. Okay, so first of all, I'm just having the arrangement up here, and I'm going to have it on my screen enabled like this for all of the time, just so I know what I'm going to do basically, and for the arrangement here. First of all, let's go and open up the channel rack. Here we have all of the sounds. So first of all, I'm just going to create something, let's say a sound or a chord progression or something like that, just so we know where we should go with this track. So I'm just going to, as you can see here, I'm clicking this plus button here, which is the same thing as add new channel. And this is basically the same thing here as add. So I'm just going to do this. This is the fastest way to create a new channel. So I'm just going to choose Citrus. And by the way, all of these plugins here is FL Studio's built-in plugins. And there's a lot of different sounds that you can use within FL Studio's own plugins. So you don't have to have different third-party plugins if you don't want to. And I'm just going to create Citrus plugin, or maybe just an FL Keys. Okay, let's go with an FL Keys. And this is just a very basic piano sounding plugin. And here, if we play something on our MIDI keyboard, then we're going to have a piano playing. you can see, we have different velocities playing here. So if I want this to be played very naturally, this is a nice way to have it. And this is also as it is set up from the beginning. But if we want this to be played like without any velocity, so it's going to be played at the same velocity if I play it softly like this or if I hammer it like that, then we can go to options, MIDI settings. You just go with your MIDI keyboard that you have, select it, then go here, velocity, click this button here, and let's do something like this, accept. So now it's playing at full volume when you're playing with your MIDI keyboard. I prefer to have it that way. You may not, so that's fine, but this is just how I would like to create my music with my MIDI keyboard here. So here in FL Keys, you can also choose different pianos that comes with this plugin. It's very simple. I'm also always using the grand piano here. It's amazing. So let's do something very easy here. Let's go with an A chord maybe. Let's create something like that. So now if we go to record here, you can see it says record automation. And this might not be what we want here. We want to record notes. So I'm just going to deselect automation and I'm right clicking this and just go to record notes. You can also choose the countdown before recording here, which will make it countdown before you record. So that will make you a bit prepared to record. So I'm just going to set this project tempo here to, let's say, 128, which is basically an EDM kind of project tempo. I'm just going to record. We have this on pattern 1, which is fine. And let's see here. Just so I know what I want to record. So let's go with that and let's click play. Okay, so now we have our MIDI notes that we played in here. And they're also quantized, as you can see, so it should be matched up, but I don't know. Let's take a listen to it. Sounds pretty good, but let's listen to it with a metronome here. Yes, and we're missing just 2 notes here. So let's do it like that. The velocity is not going with it, so you can see here you have the velocity for the MIDI notes here in the downside. You can see here we have it on full, all of the notes on full. So you can basically just rewrite the velocities for different notes if you want to. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense for this one here. Okay, and you can also use the metronome for recording, of course, which will going to make your recording much easier. And I actually recommend you to do this. So if we could just create a second pattern, and let's name piano attempt 2. And we're going to rename this to piano attempt 1. Just so we can switch between those. And now let's record it with the metronome here. Yeah, that was a lot easier to record it because you know what tempo it is playing in. So now we have 2 different, let's see here, different clips, and they're the same thing basically. So yeah, let's have it like that. So now if we have the piano attempt 1 here and we have the piano attempt 2, so now I can just redo this a bit with the piano roll and have the piano attempt 1 just leave it like it is. If let's say that we play around in the piano roll like too much, we can always go back to the piano attempt 1, of course. Okay, so for now I'm just going to create like a bigger corporation here because we only have 2 notes playing. So let's create a lower note here, for instance. So let's create one more layer here. Didn't sound good at all, so let's just delete it. And I do this with the right button on the mouse and the left button, of course, just to create different notes here. Okay, so now I have a 3-note corporation playing, and let's create a melody on top of that. So yeah, let's just experiment with this. Yes, and as you can see here, I'm just putting notes randomly here. Not randomly, of course, because it has to be I'm just using the A minor scale here. So you just look up different scales and you can play around with the notes in the scale here, of course. So now we have something like this. I think that this melody is a bit annoying and boring already. So as I said before, it's not going to be the best track that you heard. Not at all, but it's going to be something. And we're going to make a track, right? So sometimes a track can sound pretty bad in the beginning. And then when you try, like when you're building up different things on it, then it starts to be good. So this is our like foundation of the track, just something that we can start off with. And this is a way that I like to start my tracks, with a piano, just to make some different cool ideas, or like, you know, a corporation, then you know basically what you want to build up on top of that for the track. So let's say that we have our piano here. I'm just going to rename this to piano chords plus melody. Okay, so let's create our, let's go to Citrus now. So I'm pressing plus here. I'm just going to create a new pattern, which is going to be our synth. Okay, so now let's press the presets here. And this is a list of presets for this plugin here. So it's going to be the same thing with, let's say, FL Keys here. You have presets. You can see you have different presets. You also have this list that I showed before, and this is the preset list of this plugin. This might be a bit confusing, but this is just some settings of different parameters here, basically in the plugin. But this is actually like different sounds for the plugins. So if you go to Citrus here, if I go to the presets list here, this is going to be just different settings for this plugin. But there's a lot of different settings, so you can create a lot of different sounds from Citrus. So what I'm going to do here now is to create a synth sound. I want a synth sound. You can see you also have different piano sounds here as well. So let's go with synth sound. What we're going to choose here. Let's maybe try. That was not what I was looking for. Let's create a hypersaw maybe. Sounds a bit trancy. Okay, so let's go to the piano chords and melody MIDI that we had. And now I'm just going to go to the select tool. I'm going to select the notes, these notes, which is our chord progression. I'm just going to press Ctrl C or Command C. And I'm just going to go out of there, go back to the synth, just go to this hypersaw, to the piano roll. And now I'm just have this on the beginning here and just paste this. And now we have the chord progression. So let's listen to it, how it sounds with this sound. Let's go, take off the metronome. As you can see, I'm just scrolling between different presets here just to see if we find some other sounds that we like with this chord progression. And as you can see, you can sit here hours and hours and just look through different presets. So I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to choose something. I think this might be a bit too low. So I'm just going to put this from C5 to maybe C6. I'm just going to leave it like this. Like this, we have our synth pattern here. So let's create the next sound, which is going to be a bass sound. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Let's go with Citrus again. Let's close this. Now create a new pattern, which is our bass. And bass is going to be dark. Blue. Okay. A bit dark. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to go to piano roll and we're going to just paste as it was before. But for now, I'm just going to keep the lower notes. So I'm just going to the select tool and press the delete button, but I don't have any. So if we go to, I think it was, yes, delete there. Okay, so now let's go back to this tool, which is the draw tool. And now we have our lower notes. Let's play this. We want something bassy, so let's take a look at the bass section here. Yes, let's do something like this. Maybe try. As you can see, I'm holding Shift button and pressing the different up or down arrows to just make the notes go up or down. So we had it on D. Let's try this. So now I'm just going to go to song mode, and I'm going to have the bass here, and I'm also going to have the synth there. And now, of course, we have it played like it's too much. It's too high volume, of course. So let's go with the synth here that we had, or we can actually do the mixer assignments from here. So you can see the channel rack here. We have the synth, which is this pattern here. And let's just have it on number 1. So rename color and icon. And now we have this for synth. Now this is going to be the synth. So we can now lower the volume here. And then we have the deep, which is the bass. And the bass we're going to assign to number 2 in the mixer channel. So let's do the same thing here. Bass, this was supposed to be dark. Oops. And now we have this in the mixer as well. So now we can adjust the volume of the mixer channels here as well. Going to go with an ARP or something like that, something playing on top of both the synth and the bass sounds, which was supposed to be our melody, but I don't know if I'm going to keep that. But let's see what we're ending up with. So let's go with a new plugin here. Let's go with Citrus. And the Citrus actually has some presets, which is ARP. So I think if I just hold one note, it's going to play that. So let's see. This is going to be too high in volume, so I'm just going to assign it to the mixer channel and rename it to ARP. And just lower the volume a bit. Something like that. So let's go to pattern here and let's create a new pattern, which is going to be our ARP. And yeah, so something like that. So let's record this. Let's have our metronome on. And yeah, let's do it. Okay, so let's see, we have our long ARP here. Everything seems to look pretty good. should be dried out a bit more. Now we have this linked to none, so I want this to be 4th beat, just so it would be lined up correctly. And now you can see here it's not, so it's not quantized. So we want this to be quantized. So if we select all of the notes like that and just go here, Tools, Quick Quantize, which is the key command for that is Command Q for Mac. So I'm just going to do that. And now you can see all of the notes sits like where they should be. Okay, so let's try this. And you can see here the notes are being played up until here, and then we only have the ARP being played. So we can just click the bass to have the bass pattern selected. Have that here. Same thing with the synth, and just have that there. So now if we go to song, it should play everything together. Sounds pretty okay for now. So we have our synth, we have our bass, we have our arpeggiator. Now we want some beats. So first of all, we want a kick drum, and then we want some drums. And you can do this in a different ways, of course. What I would do is to take some drum loops just to make this easy for me. But you can also create different drums, let's say in a plugin where you can play your drums with a MIDI keyboard, of course. If you want to do that, you can go to plus, and then you have different synths. One of them are drum pad, which includes different drums. You have a default kick here. And you can choose different presets from here. You can also switch this out by going to right-click, replace, and now we have different plugins here. So instead of just creating a new one, let's go with Drum Max. This is also a percussion synthesizer. Let's replace this with an FPC, which is my favorite. Here we have a lot of different things that you can use. Let's say 808. Let's go to the correct. So you can play around with that a lot, but I'm going to just delete it. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use different sounds. So let's see what sounds we have. If we go to packs, let's go with loops. Nope, that is something that I'm not going to use. Let's go with drums instead. Kicks. Let's use this kick drum. So I'm just going to drag this in here. And the reason behind this is that it's going to create a sampler instrument for us. So now we can have this kick drum in a MIDI, in the piano roll, instead of just having to have this kick drum separate, like being played in the playlist. I'm just going to show you. So first of all, I'm just dragging this out to the channel rack to create a MIDI instrument for this kick drum. You can also do something like this. You can just drag this directly on the playlist here. And now you can see it's an audio file, or maybe not, but it is an audio file, but it's, if you just zoom it in like this, so you can see I'm zooming here. And now you can have the kick drum like this. And this is going to be the same thing. Same thing as if we go back to all, and we're just going to delete this, and we're going to create a pattern of it. Kick. Something like that. And now we're just going to go to the piano roll here. Let's go to C5, which is the default 2. And now it's a lot easier to just, lot easier to just do like this, right? And now we can also have this assigned to the mixer channel. We can also have, of course, an audio file assigned to the mixer channel. You can see here, this is an audio file. You can see this by this little icon here with the audio. So I'm just going to delete this because I'm not going to use that audio file, but I'm going to use the kick drum within the plugin here. Okay, so now I have the kick drum in here. You can also set the volume here. You can also set the pan here. But I'm usually not using these because it will be confusing for you to use these ones and then do volumes in the mixer. Let's say that you lower the volume here and then you have the volume like this for the kick drum, let's say, and then you don't understand why it's so low in volume. It's because you messed with this one. So I'm not going to use any volume or pan knobs here. I'm going to assign this here and just name it to kick. Okay, and now we have the kick drum, something like this. Let's play the song. Let's lower the volume a bit. Okay, so now we want that kind of pumpiness for like an electronic dance music. So we want some sidechain. So if you go to one of our mixer channels here, we can go to, let's see, the synth here. And I'm going to use effect plugins now. So as you can see here, mixer, I'm using the slot number 1. You can use any slot that you want to. This is just so you can have different effect plugins running at the same time. If we go to select here, I'm just going to use something called Grosbeat. And this is just a plugin that does different things. It actually just moves the volume in a different ways. If we have the sidechain preset here, this will make the volume go down when the kick kicks in. And this is what we want with sidechain. So if you just do something like this on the synth, now the synth should be sidechain. Now we can barely hear it. So you can see we can also mute different sounds here. Compared to without, where I can mute effect plugins here. That's way too much sidechain. So what I can do here is to, let's say that maybe volume here. This is just how much of the sidechain, actually not how much sidechain, this is how much of this plugin we want to use. And we want to use it to full. So what we can do is something like this maybe. Just to make the sidechain more subtle. Maybe to -2. That's way better. So if you go to here, you can save preset as, which we will do because I want this to be a subtle sidechain. Save. And now you can see we have the subtle sidechain preset here, so we don't have to do this adjustment each time you want to use the same kind of sidechain. So if we just go out of there, I'm just going to do the same thing with the bass. Let's go to Grosbeat, subtle sidechain, and same thing with arpeggiator, Grosbeat, subtle sidechain. course, we would like some EQ to this because we don't want any bass going on in the synth sound and the ARP sound because we have too much bass already going on in the kick drum and the bass itself, of course. So what we can do here is to have one of those mixer channels selected and just go to the equalizer that we have here. But what I would do rather is to just take a new slot and go with a Fruity Parametric EQ2. This is a cool plugin which you can just select different frequencies and how much you want it to be backed off or added on. So I'm just going to take away some bass from this synth. I'm going to do the same thing for the bass here, but the other way around. So I'm just going to take away some high end. Then I'm going to go with arpeggiator. Let's see here. I'm going to take away some bass here as well. Okay, so let's create some drums here as well. Let's see if we have some loops here. Not the best kind of loops for this sound. Yeah, okay, I'm just going to program it again. So let's create a new preset. And also you can see the patterns here disappeared because this is the audio section. This is audio clips and this is MIDI clips. So MIDI clips, by that I mean programmed MIDI data from the piano roll. That are the patterns for those. So I'm just going to create a new one here and call it drums. Okay, kick and drums. And now let's go to the channel rack and we want, let's see, we want a clap. Something like that. Yeah, let's do a hit, why not? I want a very, yeah, I want a hi-hat. I'm just going to program it like this. So I added an open hi-hat, of course, and I can just switch it out. If I don't like this, I can just switch it out by dragging it on top of that. Okay, so now we want to assign those to the mixer, which will be the mixer channel 5. Because this is the next one available for us. So let's do this and call it drums. Hit. Let's do a compression here, just to make the different sounds from the drums sounding like one. So let's just do something very, very easy here. Let's go with drums preset. Create an EQ for this as well. All right, so let's now just create a very, very basic arrangement. So I'm just going to delete all of those clips here that we had and just go first with the arpeggiator. Let's just create and start a track like that. Yep, we want that, and then we want the bass to be play from here. Okay, so now we're going to look at automations in FL Studio, and this is just to automate different parameters of different knobs or other settings that you want to use. And I'm going to just show you a very nice and cool way to do automation for an arrangement. So if you go to a filter plugin, we want to filter this a bit. So let's go to Fruity Filter, and now you have something called cutoff frequency. So now if we do some cutoff here, we can like start this track, not like very abruptly. We can just fade this in a bit, just so we have a start. Okay, we just want this to be high pass. Maybe do low pass instead. No, let's do this, this, and let's take away resonance. Okay, so now we can automate this. So if we right click one of the knobs or anything actually in FL Studio that can be automated, just right click it, create automation clip. So now you can see we have a new clip here, and this is an automation clip. And you can also find this here in this list. This is just so you don't, you're not going to be confused with the other patterns and audio that you have. So I'm just going to do something like this. It's very easy, as you can see. Just draw something in. Just maybe do something like that, and then drag it like this. Maybe fade it a bit more. We want to do the same thing with the bass. Let's go to the filter. And we have the filter. It's going to be the same thing. Let's see, this is for the ARP. I want it to be for the bass. No resonance. High pass off. Okay, so let's create an automation clip for that as well. And let's do something like this. Maybe something like that. Let's play the bass sound. And just to make this easier, to just lay out different clips here, I'm just going to go with this magnet setting here and just go to beat. And now you can see it's going to align a bit easier for us. So if we do something like this. And then we can have the synths here maybe. And something like that. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just create a filter for the synths as well. Let's go with Fruity Filter. You can see it for the synths. Just going to take away the bass right before our drop here. And then we want our kick drum to be played. Just going to do this. Let's go with the drums here. And now we can start to add up different elements, of course. And I think this was it for the track production of this track. And if you want this amazing sounding track, of course, I'm very sarcastic here, then you can export this track. And you can also save this as a project file, which I recommend you to do. As you can see, I didn't save this project at all throughout this time, but it's very, very important to save your project file. So if you go to File, Save As, and then you're saving your project file. And then you, of course, just save it. Sometimes it also auto-saves. FL Studio is amazing at auto-saving your project, but it's very important still to just save it, just so you know that that you're, like, if FL Studio is crashing for some reason, that you're not going to be left without your project. Then you can go to export here. You can press MP3 file. You can just export this track to MP3. You can also export it, of course, to different WAV files, for instance. You can also export this to, you can see here, playlist tracks, which will make stems for your audio, which will export it as stems. So you have each playlist track playing together. You have each playlist track being played in separate audio files. And you can also export this as zipped loop package. And this is very nice to have if you want everything to be zipped together, different audio files and different exported stems as well. I'm just going to take a brief look at the master here as well. So as you can see, there's nothing going on in the master channel. And what I usually do when I produce my music is to just have a Fruity limiter on, just so we don't clip the master. And that is the only thing that I do with the master when I'm producing the music in FL Studio. When you're in a mastering session, that's a whole another story, of course. Okay, guys, that is it for this course. As I shown you in this course, how to create music in FL Studio very easily from nothing. And now you have a very, very basic track, of course. And I think that you already know what to do in the next steps, just to add on different sounds. You can experiment with different sounds. As I showed before, just flickering through like a million presets will actually create so many different sounds for you, of course. And just to play around with the MIDI keyboard as in the same time as you're just flickering around different presets is also very, very nice. And it's also going to motivate you to create different music, of course. One thing that I didn't show you in this track is audio files. And audio files is basically, as I showed you with the kick drum that I imported as an audio file. But here you can just choose whatever audio file you want to. And this is just my favorite sample packs. So let's say that I want an effects. Let's say a short sweep. Just to make, let's say, just introduce different sections. You can just import it like that. And this is an audio file. So now I can just create different fades like that. Something like that maybe. As you can hear, it's very, very, very loud. So what I can do here is to go here, double click this, and you can see it's an audio clip. So this is pure audio. I can choose the volume here, just like that, or you can go to the channel rack and do the same thing here. So this is synced with this volume knob here. Or you can import it as and assign this one to a mixer track. But I wouldn't do this because I don't think an audio clip should be like in a mixer track. Because let's say that you have 20 different effects sounds, right? And then you have 20 different vocal, different variations of vocals, for instance. Then you would have a mixer, which would be like a million tracks. And I don't think that is necessary, but I still think that you should use all of your different sounds, like elements in your tracks, like synth sounds or bass sounds or drums or something like that, grouped together in one mixer channel. So this is why I do this, like synth, bass, arp, drums. Drums, you have different individual sounds being grouped together in a mixer channel like that. So this is for the audio here. Now let's say that we want to import something else here. An explosion maybe. Then you lower the volume here. You can just zoom in a bit, just so we know that is being played. Okay, so let's do something like that. Audio files. It's that easy. You can just drag an audio file from the browser onto the arrangement, and that's it. And then if you want to adjust like volumes or other stuff like that, you can just double click it to get this window. And with this window, you can do a lot of different things. You can, of course, set the volume. You can also set different pitch, pitch it down or up. You can also listen to it like that. And then you can also like do fades, as I shown here, directly into the clip. Okay, guys, that is it for this video. And as you saw here, it's a very, very brief overview of FL Studio here. If I would to show you how to create full tracks, full mixdowns, full mastering sessions, and create a huge project file, I would have to do a very, very long course, which I also done. I got many courses up on my own website, which is called music-prod.com. You can watch all of my courses, and you can also watch my full mega course for FL Studio, which is over 20 hours long, and you can find it on Udemy. It got over 7,000 reviews with a score of 4.5 out of 5. You can get this mega course for only $12 if you click the link down below. Also, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel because I'm going to upload a lot of different FL Studio videos. Sometimes it's going to be full production sessions. I'm also going to live stream here as well. And you can also find all of my FL Studio courses on music-prod.com. Okay guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video and see you in another one. If you're enjoying this free 1-hour tutorial and want to take your FL Studio skills to the next level, check out my 30-hour FL Studio Complete course on Udemy. With over 33,000 students and a 4.4 rating out of 5, this course covers everything you need to know to become an FL Studio master. You'll get hands-on experience with the software, learn how to use plugins and effects, create your own sounds and more. We will also create 6 full tracks from scratch. We'll also cover the first steps in FL Studio, just as in this YouTube video, but just more in depth. And also channel rack, mixer, playlist. We'll also show you how to start a project, exactly like in this YouTube video, but even more in depth. We will also create a full track. We'll create a deep house track there, as well as an house track. And we will also create a lot more tracks here. You can also see we have studio sessions. This is just where I create music, and this is unedited, so you can just watch from scratch what I'm doing here. And we also have some Q&A sections, and you will also learn some different synths and music theory, and you can also get some song feedback from me as well. And best of all, if you head over to music-prod.com/YouTubeFL or click the link in the video description, you'll get the course at the lowest price available. So don't wait, enroll now and start create amazing music with FL Studio.